Welcome back to Ties Talk here on Talk Radio. It's 11:33. We've been talking in this hour. We were talking with Alistair Campbell. That's upset a few people. Before that, in the first hour, we would talk about the ethics of big drug companies with regard to new treatments and ivermectin. But there's lots of other things we need to get into. We need to get into the performance of our police forces and, of course, the war on woke that drives us all mad. And I'm delighted to be joined now here in the studio by Nick Buckley, MBE, founder of the charity Mancunia Way, and also a mayoral candidate earlier this year in Manchester. Nick, very good morning. Great to see you here in London. Thanks for being with us. So, you know Manchester very well. You've lived there most, if not all, your life. What's going on with Greater Manchester Police Force? Because, you know, here in London, we've had concerns about the Met Police. We've had concerns about the leadership of Cressida Dick. It seems that she was reappointed only because they sort of basically couldn't find anybody else, which seems pretty derisory and extraordinary. Tell us about what's going on in Greater Manchester, because there's not much good news up there as well either.
It's worse news in Greater Manchester, and Greater Manchester Police was the reason why I stood against Andy Burnham for the Mayor of Greater Manchester. It was December last year, and the Government Inspectorate of Constabularies came out with Greater Manchester Police are failing so poorly, we're taking them into special measures. The only police force in the country in special measures. And that's when I went, someone's got to stand up and talk about this, because this is appalling.
Unbelievable. And what's the situation now? That was last December.
Yep.
And so there was a new chief constable. The previous one was basically fired or forced out. Is that right?
He was allowed to resign on his own terms. In any other company, you'd have been sacked. And Greater Manchester Police missed and put in the bin something like 120,000 crimes weren't even recorded. They basically went straight from the phone call into a bin, and that's why they went into special measures. So he left, and then a new chief constable was recruited, and up to now he's been saying all the right things, but again we're going to have to give him a couple of years to turn the ship around. And
what's the latest? So they're still in special measures, is that right? When would the first review be?
It was a few weeks ago, and the government said you've still made no improvements. But the chief constable's only been in post a month.
Right.
So he's not a miracle worker.
It's the beginning of his journey. But
he's passed the first test, though. The first test for me, for him, considering what he was saying, was the Pride weekend in Manchester in August. And my test I put for him was, are we going to see police officers dressed up as clowns? Are we going to see police officers dancing and gyrating in the street, a part of the entertainment? Are you going to spend thousands decorating your cars? And he passed the test because he did none of it.
Okay, so you're optimistic that there might be change in the air for Greater Manchester Police, and you know it's a huge police force. Is it right? It's the second largest.
I believe it's the second largest in the country.
And this comes down to the whole issue about the quality of leadership in our institutions, whether it's frankly the leadership in the cabinet, the leadership of the police force, the leadership of our civil service departments. I just think we need much stronger, much more robust, much more principled, clear, strong leadership. Well, that's work in progress. Keep us in touch with how it's going, and particularly we'll talk again when that first review is out. And I know the other issue, woke issues, drive you completely bonkers in the same way it drives many of my listeners and viewers and me bonkers. Give us an update. What's the latest madness going on out there?
So if you look at the newspapers today, we've got BA now is saying we're going to start using gender neutral terms because we don't want to offend anybody. We want to be inclusive and tolerant.
So this is British Airways, or should we now rename it Woke Airways? It looks like we're going to hear from the captain on board. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. You've all got to go gender neutral. I mean, is this really what's going on?
I'm not sure we should call them woke airlines. I think we should call them we think the passengers of idiots airlines. Because if you look at BA is still flying to countries where it's illegal and death penalty for homosexuality. They're still flying to China, who have locked up 1 million Muslims in concentration camps. BA sacked in 2013 a Christian lady for having her tiny little crucifix on display while she was working. Does any of this sound tolerant and inclusive to you? It's a way of them shining some shiny things, saying look at the shiny things, don't look at our past record and don't look at our prices, don't look at our customer service, look at what we're telling you to look at. They treat us like idiots, and maybe we are.
Well, I don't think we are. I think actually we realise that that most of this stuff is nonsense and doesn't help the country. get run properly, get managed properly, and get governed properly, which actually I feel that's my passion, and I think that's what most people just want, so that we can all get on with our daily lives. And then there's also another issue that you spotted in the Mail on Sunday, and the Ministry of Defence.
Again, you should ask me a couple of years ago about these woke companies and woke issues. I would have said the army and armed forces never will fall for this, because if you talk about a serious job, defence of the realm is the most serious job we have, but they're falling for it. And they're coming out now with guidance on inclusive language for soldiers and gender neutral language, and it's really, you've got a crazed terrorist running at you with a bayonet and a bomb, and you're going to have to worry about his pronouns before you shoot him. It's absolutely crazy. And if you want to see how crazy this is, go on YouTube, and there's a couple of YouTube clips at the moment. One shows an American recruitment ad
for the American military.
For the American military, and it's a cartoon, and it's this little girl who's got two mummies, who lives in California, who marches on the street for pride, and she now runs a rocket propelled system for the US military. And it's a nice little story, makes you feel good. And then they show you what the Russians are putting on their TV to recruit people, and it looks like the Russian out of Rocky IV, Drago. And it's this huge superhuman man training press-ups, running, and there's 50 others behind him. I know which one would terrify me.
That's right. I mean, I just found it extraordinary that actually these institutions, the MOD, British Airways, that they've got time to think about this stuff. I really do. I mean, personally, I would much rather the MOD was focusing on getting the quality of its buying, the quality of its procurement properly organised, rather than worrying about its inclusive language guide, which just seems they should be. There's so much more things they need to be focused on.
I used to work with the police. I used to be based in police stations in Greater Manchester. I was never a police officer, but I was based in police stations. I've seen their recruitment process if you want promotion to inspector, chief inspector, superintendent. And you have to bring something new and different to that interview. And now you have to bring something inclusive or tolerant to that interview. And it's like a positive feedback loop. So when you bring these ideas to your recruitment panel, the wackiest, craziest, woke ideas are deemed now the most valuable, and you get promoted. So within the organisation, same with the army now, I would imagine, they're promoting the most woke because that's what comes across at the interview, and that's what they're valuing most of all.
And what worries me is that the cost of this, it's not just the time, but it's actually real money. And if you take an institution like the NHS, where if you're a diversity manager, you might be being paid £75,000 a year, which is essentially about double what a nurse and at the average nurse's salary on the front line, giving care, making a real difference to people's lives, relieving pain, helping them getting cured. It just seems completely back to front.
And again, if you look at the NHS, it's the most diverse workforce in the country. They employ something like 3 times the level of BAME people in the country. A third of all doctors and specialists are from the BAME community, which is only 13%, but they're employing 2, 3, 4 times the amount of people. They don't need diversity managers. They need less managers to begin with, and they need more nurses and more doctors.
Absolutely right, Nick. You're so right. The NHS needs less managers and more people on the front line, and we need to be focusing on the things that really matters to people's daily lives across the board, but in particular things like healthcare. Nick Buckley, thank you so much for coming in. Great to hear your views, your thoughts. Come back to tell us about how Greater Manchester Police is performing under its new Chief Constable.